Good evening, and this is Thursday, December 18th, at the meeting of the Bolton Board of Selectmen. The first item on our agenda is a continuation of a public hearing to act on the application of Condyne Capital Partners LLC for a site plan review of a 2,500 square foot assisted living facility at 580 Main Street, Bolton. We have received a request from the applicant that we continue this hearing because they are still working with the Design Review Board. And I guess given the schedule of that board, we should probably continue this to our second meeting in January on the 22nd. So I guess we'll need a motion to continue the hearing to probably 7 p.m. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Move that we continue the site review hearing with Condyne on their assisted living facility until January 22nd, 2015 at 7 p.m.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is a review of a draft recall bylaw, and we're a little ahead of schedule here, but I think we can go ahead and do this if our two principals are
Right,
here.
so I wanted to give you an updated spreadsheet. I realized that I did not include Lancaster, even though they just drafted one, because I didn't find it online. So I called the town clerk and got a copy today. So,
Do they need one?
they just utilized it, as you learn. So, this is really a draft. I want comments, suggestions, whatever. I, just thought we needed a starting place. So I don't know if you want to walk through it. The authority to recall. The main thing there we decided on was the 6 months. Let's see. Any holder of an elected office in the town of Bolton who has held that office for 6 months and has more than 6 months remaining in the term of office shall, on the date of the filing of the affidavit, blah, blah, blah. So the main thing there is the 6 month.
If you have some sort of way, you can't be recalled after 5 minutes.
Exactly.
So they try to overturn the results of an election they didn't like or whatever.
Right.
So,
And that,
that was kind of, well, what
no, other places don't necessarily do that, but some towns do, I see from your list.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
yeah, to back up a step, I did it in italics, the main points to discuss. We laid out the basic process, Don and I went over that. And so these are the things that, you may have a comment or suggestion on. And then the initiation of the recall petition, 30 registered voters can initiate it, and then, it goes to the clerk, and then the clerk provides the folks with the form to go out and get the signatures.
Right.
And then they need to have 15% of the registered voters sign the petition. Has to be back to the clerk by the 21st day after filing the affidavit.
And 15%, that's sort of,
Yeah.
I guess it's on the low end of towns. I mean, they're between 15 and 30%, but it's still a lot of people, right?
A fair amount of
I mean,
people.
how many registered voters do we have?
We have probably close to 3,500.
So it's around 500 signatures you need. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But,
That's a lot.
I guess it's the idea is it's,
You want a reasonable bar, but,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
It shouldn't be easy, but it should be attainable.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think that 15% probably makes sense as well.
Okay. And again, town council certainly looking at this too. On the next page, the top, sorry.
This is a,
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
So-
I'm okay with it.
yeah, so you're elected. So in theory, you could, if somebody is trying to recall the town clerk,
Right.
can the town clerk put any wrenches in this by not certifying signatures or not, I remember in
Good point.
a neighboring town, the
Since a
recall,
majority of the selectmen were being recalled.
the majority of them being recalled, and they refused to hold a meeting to accept the petitions.
Right.
I want to,
The,
just trying to,
no, that's a very good point. I hadn't
Yeah.
really thought about it from that angle. the Board of Registrars, of which I am a member, but there are 3 other members,
Mhm.
are the ones that actually certify the signatures. So I could step aside and have nothing, I or whoever the clerk is,
Yeah.
which could have nothing to do with that, but that's a good point.
And
Dave?
The town clerk is a poor example because she has a 1-year term, right?
No, oh yeah, I do have 1 year.
So she's,
Oh, good, yeah.
unless you go
You're
get her,
immune.
yeah, unless you get her on
No accident, I think.
167.
6 months.
is that transactional immunity?
Yeah.
But that is the point. Do you want all our 1-year term people to be exempt? And maybe you do, right? But
Well, it's really
1 year-
myself and the moderator are the only that are 1 term, are 1 year.
Yeah.
When you're elected,
Mhm.
yeah, and this only really applies to elected
I could sort of
officials,
see
so.
maybe wanting to get rid of a town moderator who had a really bad annual meeting, and then there's gonna be a special town meeting in the fall, but,
So they might not, well, I mean, we'll get to this, but given the timeframes here, I mean, it's not even clear
Make it in the,
you'd have time to do that.
Right.
But no, I mean, it's something to think about. Yeah.
In the case of the selectmen not showing up at a meeting ostensibly to not receive the petitions, I believe their town council ruled that since the petitions were delivered, whether they were there or not, that it counted.
Yeah.
So on page 2, the statement of grounds we thought was pretty important. A lot of these did not have it. Most of
In
these.
fact, only one did.
Only one
Yeah,
did.
that was very glaring, we thought.
And I thought, to give people, some guidelines. And the last one is, in no case shall the exercise of discretion in voting on matters before the officer constitute grounds for recall. I think that's pretty important.
Yeah, but, I mean, in that case though, why would there recall in Lancaster? They wouldn't have had the recall in Lancaster, which was overwhelmingly approved in Lancaster, but it was, they were voting at the 11th hour to sort of dump their town administrator. It seems like, but I see your point. But I think if it's, you get 500 signatures that, the selectmen voted the wrong way on some issue, then, I don't know. I mean, maybe we don't want that safe harbor. And I also thought, actually, a big gap here is, say perhaps there was a selectman who violated the conflict of interest law, that should be spelled out under malfeasance, and not just a
Okay, good.
violation of open meeting law, I think violation of the conflict of interest law. Because some of these other things, I mean, they're gonna be rare events, right? Corruption, a felony conviction, really? How about, or,
Never.
in sobriety while performing official duties. I guess actually that could come up, but or commitment to a mental health facility. So, yeah, I guess I think.
Well, do you want to reword that last sentence, or
Which one?
in no case shall the exercise of discretion in voting?
I guess what you're
So
saying,
you're saying in other towns, though, I mean, I wanted to see sort of other models as to
There were
other,
no other ones.
yeah.
Seriously.
And what town
Are
was
you
this?
saying
There was
no other
towns in-
towns gave grounds?
there was towns, and so, the other 8 towns, right,
Yeah, I think
that
there
we
were
looked
8,
at, none of them had grounds.
No grounds at
So
all.
I guess perhaps
We
So-
Perhaps the
they could be
sentiment,
for any reason.
perhaps the sentiment was what you're expressing, that, someone could go off and get 500 or 1,000 signatures, whatever the percentage is, then they can convince people it's a compelling case that maybe it should be brought forward to a vote, so, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's
Yeah.
a compelling case and a relatively short, it's 3 weeks, so it's not, you don't have months to kind of build a base of support for it.
True.
Our logic obviously was, somebody's not happy with a particular vote, therefore someone should be recalled, but.
Right, but there's still that fairly high bar of, they have to get 30 people right away to say, yeah, that was bad, and then another 500 to,
Right.
to agree.
So no, I mean, I
So
certainly
we
see
don't
your
make it
point.
too
I
easy.
see your point too, yeah.
So, but Larry, I didn't want to lose one of your other points, which was, in the second, for the second reason that's listed here, I believe it was, I'm sorry, the third, fourth, sorry.
Under the various types of
Under the
misfeasance,
Yeah.
they had, what it says now is performance of official duties in an unlawful manner or a willful violation of the open meeting law.
So would it be
Oh, should
more,
just
would it be
say-
broader to say, and for, I mean, if you get into just a, and I'm not minimizing it, but just a conflict of interest, there could be other ethics violations that could rise to the same level. So would you broaden it and say for ethics violations rather than strictly the conflict of interest law?
Conflict of interest or other ethic.
Or ethical violations?
Ethical violations, yeah.
Yeah, though I think that, I mean, the conflict, the conflict of interest law picks those. I mean, that's the label, but it picks up more than just that. But I think I think Stan's idea makes sense.
But just to spell it out.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
just spell it out.
Or other ethical violations, okay.
But, I think maybe on the votes, that we should have some standard to say, that a, I have to think about this, but something that is I mean, you want decisions that were, not just not in the best interest of the community, but that were, I don't know what, I have to think about this, but I mean, something you can't, I think generally this format is good to say, here are the types of things that should, that could lead to a recall, but to have something to say if it's based on votes that the official has to, have egregious, ignoring community interests, or I don't know, say
Right.
something along those
Right, 'cause
lines.
we could take a vote and, something perfectly reasonable, but there's a faction that doesn't like it. And then you get the 30, then you get the 500.
But on the other hand, it's like, who's going to interpret that? If you get all these signatures, the town clerk's saying, well, they wrote this up and they said this is, it was egregious, and so.
No, egregious is in the eye of the beholder. So.
Yeah.
Right.
But wasn't there something in Lancaster, I remember hearing when they were considering their bylaw, that they had a debate at town meeting, because they first had to go through the step of adopting the bylaw before they did this, and they had people, and maybe it was people who were saying there weren't any criteria, maybe that was the objection at their town meeting when it was adopted, but I just remember hearing sort of anecdotally that
There was an
some people
objection.
thought it was too broad.
There was an objection
'Cause there wasn't
about the lack of criteria, but that objection was, I think, largely outvoted.
Well, I mean, we don't have to solve it now, but
Right,
but
no,
I think,
but
I think,
Okay, well, let's look
Yeah.
at that. I mean, maybe we
Yeah.
don't want to go so far as to say in no case shall. I mean, maybe that's
right.
kind of,
Or to Larry's point,
Yeah.
a vote that's, not in the best interest of the town, or an egregious vote, or something along those lines, But you just, if somebody doesn't like something,
that's kind of what I think.
I mean,
this
you try
is
to take the
saying.
subjectivity out of it, and
Right.
perhaps it is removed altogether, and if somebody, as you said, can go off and get 500 signatures because, this was
Yeah.
whatever it was a really bad thing, and then 500 people have spoken, and then the election is held, and with the vote, and subsequent election are held,
right,
and then the people weigh in.
Yeah, I can kind of go both ways. I mean, I tend to think a lot, but I mean, if you think, could you get 500 people, when, pick your favorite development in town was approved by the planning board, could you have gotten 500 outraged citizens to vote for a new planning board, even though they followed, followed the regulations, yeah.
But remember, that only brings it to the ballot, and
That
then,
brings it to-
and then everybody has the ability to come out and vote.
Right. Right, so then you'll get the 30 people that actually initiated it, are the only ones who will come to vote, and, So that would be kind of a case against including votes, but
Mm-hmm.
you can also
Yeah.
see places where you would want to say, if you're not, where you
Yeah.
would want.
Well, there are many boards that find themselves in unpopular positions
Yeah.
sometimes, whether it's the selectmen or the planning board, sometimes the conservation commission.
Yeah.
So they're not elected.
That's true. That's true.
Board of Health, though. Those
Board of
guys.
Health,
All right.
All right.
Right, so we can-
So it's an open item that you
Yeah,
can
okay.
consider.
Then the next section is the notice to officer resignation or recall election to be ordered, it's to the clerk, to the selectmen.
Your second 60-day period here, I
Yeah.
think should be a higher number, because that's I think the whole point is,
Not less.
normally you'd set it between 45 and 60 days out.
Okay.
But if you've got a town election 80 days out, it would make sense to let's just wait, instead of having
Okay,
to cost
you
the
wanna-
two elections. Well, I was thinking 90, they had, and I saw some of these towns had that as their,
That might make sense.
I mean, the
Sure
scale is
does.
anywhere between 60 and 100, so.
Yeah,
yeah.
you
Sure.
guys all agree 90,
Yeah,
okay,
that's good.
sounds good. Okay, now this one, we can pick A or B. Officer being recalled may be a candidate, or officer being recalled may not be a candidate.
And you suggested they should be candidates, but then the recallee gets 2 bites of the apple.
That's what I thought until Don
Yeah,
shed
Pam
some
and I
light on
did.
it. I had the same thing.
But the fact is that all it is an allegation of someone supposedly having done something incorrectly. Maybe it's an allegation, maybe it's more fact-based, but the fact is the person has the ability, should have the ability to rerun for the seat. And then the people in the second part of the question, because, there are two questions here. One, do you support the recall election? Should Selectman A be recalled?
But if they're not recalled, then you don't get to, then you're throwing out the results of the election.
That's right. And
Well,
that's
why should their name be down there again? So that you could get this sort of anomalous result where somebody, we wanted to recall him, but compared to his opponents, he was the best one.
Well, I guess that's,
Well, I guess the message that's sending is, yes, what he did that triggered this was
Actually,
bad.
it's a slap on the wrist.
But it is kind of a,
but
given
that's
the
democracy in
alternative,
action. You could have, I guess, logically, you could have an inverse ratio in that if 2 out of 3 people felt that the person should be recalled, then 1 out of 3 voted for him in the actual election. I think if there is an imperfect candidate running against a person who's being recalled, then the person could get back in. But again, that's, I think just.
I don't know. I think the whole format is confusing to people. No matter how you do it,
It
it's
is.
going to be confusing.
It is.
And,
But
but I'm not.
but otherwise, a person doesn't get a chance to defend themselves in a recall election.
Yeah, no, sure they do. They say, don't recall me. Because if you recall me, you're going to have one of these other characters. Dave?
We're letting the guy have his name on the ballot as well as being subject to recall gets to be a problem. They just have this down in Fall River. If you've got 3 or 4 or 5 people competing for the now open slot, in Massachusetts, it's just a plurality. Whoever gets the most votes, you don't need a majority. So they were very concerned in Fall River that the 3 or 4 other people would split up the vote so much. And with 1/3 of the vote, this guy could get back in. Now, it turned out it didn't work out that way. Somebody else got the plurality. But nobody got a majority in that vote. So
No,
I kind of lean to your idea that
Yeah,
he shouldn't be on there.
yeah, because
But
you,
I guess I kind of look at it, it's 2 separate messages. One is, the vote to recall is kind of saying, yes, we think what you did, what triggered their petition is probably something you shouldn't have done. But then we're willing to give you another chance, sort of.
So, but then I would have to say that if you don't want the person to be eligible for recall, which is certainly an option, then I think you should have criteria for the recall, because you could have a situation where there's a group of people who are upset at the planning board, as you said, for something. So they can go out and get their signature, even though they follow, the person followed the law, or people, it doesn't have to be one person, it could be more than one person. They followed the law, but they approved this development, and people in that area are not happy about it. They could get the signatures, so the person wouldn't have the chance to defend themselves at election, even though they actually did nothing wrong. They followed the law, it's just people didn't like it.
Yeah.
So I think if you're not going to have criteria, then I think the person, how do I say this? If you're having criteria, I think, I want to say this correctly. I think if you don't have criteria, then the person should be able to defend themselves in the election. If you're going to have solid criteria for which a vote is going to be, and one may be that you can't be recalled for a vote that you placed, that you made when in performance of your duties, then maybe the person doesn't need to be on the ballot. But I think there needs to be some balance there.
I disagree. I mean, if you're going through this giant step and you're saying, yes, recall this person, that person is out. They should not, you shouldn't then have to sort of fall back of, well, let's see how that person compares to the other candidates.
Well, but you're not giving the guy who's being recalled a chance.
There is a chance. It's like, don't recall me. I've been doing a great job.
And
I mean,
you're not-
I don't see you can't.
But
How can he not campaign?
But how can you? But you don't you're not really campaigning while people are going out getting signatures. They're gonna stand on street corners. They're gonna do whatever. And from personal experience, not having been recalled, but from personal experience, I know when you're out trying to get signatures, people will sign something just to get rid of you.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean they agree with what's on the paper.
Oh, sure, but-
And there are people that will say, well, I'll sign it for the purposes of putting it on the ballot, but I haven't made my mind up about this yet.
Right.
No, and then you have no recall.
No, but.
No, but I mean, if you get
Oh,
500...
that's great.
No,
but-
Best school committee guy ever.
That's true, but you can get 500 signatures without having 500 people agreeing with the action.
But you,
And it's only
but when you're
6
in the ballot box, I mean, when you're in the ballot, somebody says, the first line is, should we recall Don Lowe? Yes or no?
Yep.
And they say, no. And you say no to the first question.
Yeah.
And so that's you get the chance to make your case. And then and then below that is like, here are other candidates.
Mhm.
And they can check off whoever they want, but if there's a no vote on the first one, those are
Well, let's just
irrelevant.
make sure, so in this election process, is the first thing that people vote on as to whether they want to recall?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not as if, it's not like impeachment, where you've been impeached and then it's the trial of the impeachment. The recall, it's been put on the ballot with all those signatures, but it hasn't, let's see.
And
Here's your language here.
if the recall vote is
But I-
defeated, you really don't tally, or you certainly don't announce the tally of the votes for the people on the ballot. It's just, there's no recall and it's done.
Larry, since this has come up, we've gotten to this, on the Lancaster bylaw, I like their wording better, and I think it's clearer, and it simply it says ballots used in recall elections shall contain the following question: shall, insert the name in the office, be recalled from office. The one I have in here is a little more vague. So I like that better. I was going to
Alright.
recommend you change it to that.
No,
And then immediately at the right of the proposition, there shall be a designated place for voters to vote for or against the proposition. So it's to recall, shall the person be recalled, and then a list of candidates.
But you have to, I mean, if you're going to say, I mean, the language you had here originally said that they'd
Yeah,
be,
for the recall.
you know, for the recall, against the recall, with little X's next
Yeah.
to them. And then under that, you have candidates. But if you're not going to, I mean, I think there needs to be a little more, so either way, there needs to be clarity as to sort of what the effect is. But, yeah, I'm still troubled by the idea, the two bites of the apple, but because you can get these results and we haven't gotten to how do people then get on the ballot in the recall, because we're not gonna have a caucus, are we? It's probably just 20 signatures, so you could have 3 people running for the open seat, and then, you know, again, somebody with, you know,
No, Dave's scenario was entirely
Yeah.
possible with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so. All right, boy, it's interesting.
you wanna
You
get
get
It's
into
it's
this.
very
I know,
interesting.
you wanna ponder that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's ponder that.
When you
Okay.
sit down and read, I mean,
You gotta think about it,
Because
is it really,
Because you can see pros and cons. of
Absolutely.
both.
Kevin and I read the full bylaws of all 8 or 9 communities, whatever it was, and, I mean, I felt kind of geeky because I was fascinated by it, you know, getting into all the nuts and bolts. but-
yeah, some of them did,
Alright.
some of them didn't.
Yeah, well,
So then we jump to the ballots used. So like I say, I would prefer it to say in real, you know, state in this language, shall insert name and office be recalled from office, question mark. Because I think it's very much clearer than what we have, what I've got here. And then it's Mass General Law 5442 on how the candidates,
Yeah.
I know,
No, it's important that we have this.
yeah.
It really is.
What, Pam, what did you say? Mass general law of how candidates get on the ballot, did you say?
no, well,
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, I think
was it,
that's
the
what. under
provision shall appear the
Oh, I
word
see.
candidates, the directions to voters as required by MGL, chapter 54, section 42.
Which I don't.
And what is that? What's on the regular is that just what's on the regular ballots, or is that a special recall language? I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's probably accurate, yeah.
And then how about that last sentence? If a majority of votes on the question is in the negative, the ballot for candidates need not be counted.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
that's clear. And then the time restrictions.
I mean, just to
Sure.
pick up on Don's geeky thing on the ballots. Do we want to specify that, or, you know, is that lock us into a certain type of ballot, or do we want to say consistent with other, I mean, if we switch to electronic voting, would we need to amend this? You know, if we were using a touch screen instead of a,
I don't
Yeah.
think it should affect that.
just, I don't know whether we're being too specific.
Well, it says
here.
need not be counted, it doesn't say shall not.
No, not just on the
About
counting
that.
part, but
He's
just
talking
the
about that.
whole thing with the name with the X to the right. and
Oh, I see what you're saying.
All that, and is that being too specific for?
Oh, I think you would do it, you know, I mean, it might be below because of the dots. Oh, I see what you're
Yeah,
saying.
or,
Not an X you fill in a circle.
yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
or is somebody gonna say, well, it'd be
Right.
clearer if it was to the left, and then, oh, we can't do that without amending the bylaw.
Oh, I
That's
see,
just-
yeah,
Well,
good
the
point,
thing is-
I mean,
okay.
there's kind of standard formats that we use for all of the town ballots.
Ballots, that's a
And
good
I think
point.
just saying that it has to be consistent with that,
Mhm.
so that we're not creating some
Good point.
butterfly ballot or something, you
Yep.
know.
This is-
Or you have
Yeah.
some rules and regs that are associated
Yeah.
with this that can.
Yeah, just, yeah.
And I'm thinking that Mass General Law 5442 is you list the candidates alphabetically, I think it's that kind of stuff.
Mhm. Yeah.
Consistent with ballot format, that's a good point.
So that's, under that law, it generally designates that the incumbent is listed first, if there is one. So that's another point for whether or not the
Yeah.
person in office should make the ballot, because then they would appear first on the ballot. And believe it or not, that actually is a benefit. Because sometimes people just vote for the first name on the ballot.
Yeah, maybe we should tweak that, so that whole
I have to
paragraph.
already guess on the recall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last
And this is
paragraph
another
about,
6-month,
Yeah, they can't, the town can't take another swing at them for another 6
right,
months.
right.
You do get a second bite at the apple, but you have to wait.
You have
And
to
that
wait.
actually stems from when we first talked about this. You know, Pam and I had both said that we felt that you shouldn't get another bite at the apple if
Right.
a person has already survived one recall. And then one of you correctly said, well, some offices are 5 years, not 3. So maybe you should be able to recall them, and that was a point well taken,
Yeah.
so we changed that.
Well, also, I wouldn't want somebody to say, well, somebody took a swing at me in recall, and failed, so now I'm free to do whatever I want.
yeah, that's right. I thought I was a jerk before.
Yeah.
I ain't say nothing yet.
And then you have the prohibition for 2 years.
Yeah, for
You're
2
you're in the
years.
wilderness for 2 years after you're recalled. No, you can't even be appointed.
And that's all over the place too. I mean,
Yeah.
many towns do 2 years, some do 1, or one did
A
1,
lot
and
of them
then,
are silent.
and then
Yeah.
several are silent on it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that-
I think some sort of banishment, I guess, is, you know, not unreasonable.
All right, so we'll review that section,
Have to wear a collar or something.
and I'll look up that next box.
A red letter.
I was just gonna say. The cone machine. And then we'll revisit the, maybe a candidate, may not be.
All right.
All right, well, no, it's very, very interesting. Thanks
It is.
for pulling all this together here. It's more complicated than we
It really
thought.
generates an awful lot of thought.
It really does.
Dave?
Under the grounds you're currently considering, could the Lancaster recall have taken place?
Nope.
Well, I mean, they had a
Could not.
lot of,
No.
Yeah,
they wrote up a lot
And
of
that's a
sort
good
of
point.
I
charges.
That's a
don't
good
like
point.
that.
Yeah.
It seems to me the Lancaster recall should have taken place.
Yeah.
Or at least, I don't know the merits of the case, but at least
Yeah.
there should have been a vote on it. And if we're adopting grounds that wouldn't have allowed a vote on the Lancaster recall, I don't like that.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. I
Yeah.
mean, we hadn't, when we initiated this, that was actually, I'm not sure, well, whatever. But I think that has proven to be a valid point for,
Actually, I think even with this, it would have worked, because it was the mechanism of how they went about what they
But
did.
They were
could
open,
have
they were
gone to
open
court.
meeting
They could
complaints.
have gone to court about it.
Yeah.
I kind of lean toward no grounds, and maybe bump the signatures up to 20% instead of 15. So make it a little harder to get it, but if that many people want to recall somebody for any reason.
yeah, see, there were open meeting
Yeah, those were-
violation allegations, but they were
Haven't been.
never found to have actually technically broken the open meeting law.
Well, but
And I'm
I
sure
don't
the
know, on a
state took a
recall,
look
you
at that.
need a conviction.
I know.
Well, I mean,
I mean,
that's the question is, do you need,
I mean, it-
Like proof or like,
do you need
a decision from the Attorney General or
Attorney
something.
General or
Yeah.
the Ethics
Yeah.
Commission or something before you can,
I mean,
No, I mean, what,
$10,000 fine?
I mean, as this was written, malfeasance, and it says, performance of official duties in an unlawful manner or willful violation of the open meeting law. And so somebody just has to allege that there was a willful violation. I don't think you have to prove it, but, which maybe would have been a way to get at their
Well,
Lancaster issue.
that would have been a way to do it. If
Yeah,
if you don't have
yeah.
to prove it, you just have to, allege, some egregious violation of the open meeting law, which it certainly had the appearance of one. Although the AG's office ultimately ruled otherwise, but that was really,
Yeah, I don't know,
that
that was
was-
before them, yeah.
that was the genesis of the recalls, that people were outraged that they thought the open meeting law had been violated.
yeah,
Right.
Was the complaint too late? They didn't
Yes,
rule because it
they
was within
didn't
30 days?
Right,
Yeah.
so there was no decision on whether they violated or not.
Well, in the law, there's always a difference between not guilty and innocent. So,
Yeah, this was,
All right, we can certainly,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
but I mean,
that.
but I think if we're gonna go that direction, I think we need to say that, the allegation of violation there. So that people can say, well, you haven't proven that that we violated it, so. Like Dave said, and that, if you had to wait for the Ethics Commission or a judge to rule on it, and they say, well, it was, you missed the window by a day, so, I don't think the bylaw would work the way we
Right.
want.
No, there really are a lot of different ways to interpret this, and there's really no right or wrong. It's just what your comfort level is.
Yeah.
right.
This is really good.
Yeah, well, no, and it's good we're sort of starting on this so early rather than,
Yeah.
as the warrant is
Before the warrant.
closing, yeah.
And it's an act, it's, has to be enacted by the state and has to be a home rule.
Good, all right, well, great.
And I think the legislature approved it in 3 or 4 months, as I recall. I mean, it sort of got faster.
There's to, yeah.
Okay,
All righty.
Great.
thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
So it has to go to town meeting and the legislature?
All right, the next item on our agenda is the town administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll lead off with Minuteman since we didn't have it on our last agenda. We had a managers meeting at Minuteman last week, and I would say 9 or 10 of us were able to attend, and the superintendent gave us his initial cut at the budget for next year, and which we found interesting. The good news is, in his operating budget, he's currently projecting, and these are not final numbers, currently projecting an operating budget increase of about 1.64%, which I thought was wonderful, showing quite a bit of fiscal restraint. However, the required member town assessments are going up 9.84% total. The reason being fewer students, both in district and out of district. Out of district students, for example, this year at 356, next year projected to be 331, and the the commissioner of DESE continues to lower the required tuition for out-of-district students. So currently, or the formula had been 150% of foundation, and it's now down to 132% of foundation, and it's going down to 125% of foundation. So it's heading in the wrong direction for reasons that I still don't understand and are not well explained. But the bottom line is that with fewer students, and also as I think as we march to the 628 number, which is the population that the school committee has approved for the building project, whether it's new or renovated. So that's not trending well. The projected numbers are all over the place right now as far as who's going up, who's going down. Our increase, our estimated increase wasn't as bad as I thought once I saw this, but some other towns, I think, might disagree with that. Just some news on the regional agreement. Sudbury, who passed over the regional agreement previously, is now recommending approval of the regional agreement at their annual town meeting, and they will be delaying any decision on withdrawal from the district for 1 year. So that we thought was significant. The superintendent reminded us that if we don't have everything wrapped up with the project relative to getting the regional agreements all approved and having our plans and schematics ready to go, by June 30th, 2016, we will lose MSBA funding and there will be no further extensions. So that's a hard date, according to DESE. And those are the highlights from the latest meeting. So we've got to start communicating with the 16-member towns relative to what the school building plans are. We need to be able to show the design level, not just, obviously we don't have schematics, but the conceptual design level right now. We need to get the costs out, which we don't have a hard number yet. We will at our first meeting in January. I recommended to Superintendent Boquillan that he has to get on the agenda for either the January or February tri-town, so we can get 3 towns at once together and hear the same message. He really liked that idea. I don't know if it's going to be the January meeting or not. I don't think he's made a request yet, but he definitely will be making a request for one or the other. So that's pretty much where we are with Minuteman right now. As far as the budget update goes,
Mr.
I
Chairman,
think Dave
I'm
has
sorry.
a question on Minuteman.
back when I was involved, we had usually between 9 and 11 students at Minuteman. Is that still the case?
we have 10.
10.
Absolutely between 9 and 11. Any other questions on that? The budget update, the department heads have done a very good job of getting their budgets in. I believe we have a couple of pretty much a couple of boards and committees, but pretty much we've got everybody in now.
We do.
And we have a preliminary list of articles, which is still, you know, we're fine tuning, but one thing of note is the planning board doesn't have any major articles coming this year, which is the first time in a few years. They've got 3 articles now proposed for some fine tuning, and one potentially new bylaw, which would be administrative, it wouldn't be zoning, relative to the abolition of the use of Jake brakes on Route 117. And Erica has the language for that.
So other towns have?
There was one that was found, and I don't know if there are others, but there was one, but what I don't know is whether, how we enforce that.
And is that within the planning board's purview, or is that more?
Well, that's the question I have. Is that under their jurisdiction?
It is not under, it's not under the planning board's jurisdiction, but I would say that since all 5 members of the planning board are citizens, you know, any citizen has the right to go off and do that. You know, as a courtesy to a board, generally speaking, we wouldn't make them go off and get signatures for a citizen's petition or anything like that. But no, to answer your question, it's not zoning, so it does not directly fall under the jurisdiction of the planning board.
Then they should do it as a citizen's petition. That would be my opinion.
Or they should propose that we sponsor it.
Yeah, no, I think.
Because as is, I would vote to have it removed.
So I guess we should invite them to perhaps.
I think we should give them the option, and they can either request to come on our agenda or go get the petition.
Right. But I mean, if they choose not to, I mean, my inclination would be they can either do it as a citizen's petition, or we should take it off the warrant, because it's not part of their jurisdiction.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll get an email to the planning board asking them if they would like to come to a selectmen's meeting to ask the selectmen to put the article on the warrant, or would they prefer to treat it as a citizen's petition? Okay. And an update on the no parking signs on Green Road. Chief Alfano and I met with Superintendent Wood and Bill Cleary this morning on Green Road, and the chief had his spray can of orange paint, and we walked Green Road, first up the right-hand side and then back on the left, coming back towards 117, and approximately every 25 feet or so, not exactly, obviously, we put an orange dot down. The superintendent asked about space between signs, and the chief basically explained that, well, there's no bylaw saying how far apart signs need to be. They need to be close enough so that no one can say they parked in between them and didn't see either sign, because a court would throw that ticket out, unquestionably. So, pardon me. So the superintendent was fine with that. And we had previously estimated 16 signs. When we were done walking the site, we actually put the spot down in 23 locations. There are 2 residences in that area, and when we got to them, we picked locations that would be like pretty much in front of a tree or a cluster of trees, so the sign wouldn't be readily visible from the home. At least in one case, and I would say 2, the chief spread them further apart than he necessarily wanted, just to help with the aesthetics for the homeowners. So I think we did a pretty good job locating them. The DPW will put stakes in, and I thought we should probably go about 2 weeks to let people see where the proposed signs would go. And obviously it could shift a bit, but basically where the signs should go, and then we would go off and order the signs and have the DPW install them. The superintendent did agree to pay for them, so that's not an issue.
Okay.
So with us providing the labor and the school department paying for the signs and us giving a couple of weeks for the residents to weigh in, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Sounds like a lot of signs. Because I think when you actually get them all up there, that is a scenic road.
It does sound like a lot of signs, but when you walk it, I mean, the chief was pretty liberal with his space. He wasn't being conservative with it. And if we think it's too many signs, we can always take a sign or two down, but once you actually see it and you see the logic behind it, it really wasn't excessive.
But it's 23 on two sides of the road.
That's correct.
Yes.
Right, but I mean, it's, you know, it's only, it's not that long. Well, maybe it is that long a stretch if you're going all the way up to the
So we did what we
cemetery.
went all the way, we went from the corner at 117 to the cemetery.
Yeah, yeah. We had a comment?
Yes, my name's Joel Franklin. I'm 21 Green Road, and we don't have a problem with the parking on Green Road. We think it would be fine if there was no parking on one side, so then the safety vehicles could get up and down the street still. But the main problem is when they have an event over there, they're not utilizing their parking like they should be. They just overflow right out into the street instead of parking in the open spots.
But the only way to stop that is to not let people park on Green Road, right?
That's one way, or since they're having an event, shouldn't they have someone out there directing people to park?
Well, but then,
Maybe, but if there's no, if there's a lack of no parking signs, then people can still,
Understood.
you know, whether it's an event or, and, you know, there's
because
something.
my guess people are parking on
So-
Green Road for the convenience of being able to get out before everybody else then would be in the parking lot. You know, and some of these events where, you know, they have craft fairs and stuff, I mean, they have people out there, but they're monitoring people to go into certain parking spots, you know, as people go in, and it's a very orderly progression. You know, I don't know how they can really manage that with the layout that they have there.
Or they only direct people once they're on
Once they're
school
in, they're not
grounds,
sort of
not-
roaming marshals.
But they're not even going in, they just go right and park there.
Right, well, if I knew I could park there without any problem and it would let me get out of a big event sooner, you know, I might very well do that,
Understood,
you
but
know.
you go to a
can't-
Patriots game, do they let you park at the front door? No, you have to
But we can't,
go park and walk in like.
Well, but it's good,
We
you
can't
get a
order them
ticket
to
if you
not
park
park
at the
on the
front,
road.
yeah.
Right.
we can't order them to not park on the road if there's no signage.
Right.
Yeah. But are you suggesting you don't want sign, no parking on both sides?
Yes,
And,
because the buses and everything come and sit on my side on the property waiting to get in, and if you put signs there, they're not gonna be able to stay over.
I'm not sure if, I don't follow that. What do you,
That would just, if all the signs were there, then the cars couldn't get through. If they were, the buses, let me rephrase myself, the buses sit and wait to get in to the high school.
mm-hmm.
And if there are no parking signs are there next to the road, like I would assume they are, then they're gonna be in the road.
Well, keep the buses from scooting over to let other cars go by while they
Correct.
wait to unload all the students.
Yeah.
So the buses are over on the shoulder now?
Yeah.
The shoulder. Good word.
But, and so the buses are parking on the
Well,
shoulder?
they're, you know, waiting to get in.
Well,
The drivers
are they waiting to get in or are they parked? I'm confused.
Yeah.
No, they're waiting to get in and unload or pick up, you know, depending on the time
Well,
of the day.
then they're idling then. You know, so they're not there for the duration of the event then, or are they?
But I think the point is that.
Are you saying
that it's-
daily?
No, we have no problem with during the school day.
That's right, we all agree on that, that's right.
It's just on the events that we're having problems. But I'm just saying that if you would be more than happy to say no parking on one side, because that's going to give safety vehicles enough room to get up and down, and then the high school can have, I don't know, their side to park cars up and down if it's an overflow into the street type thing.
Okay, but there are homes on both sides of Green Road.
Not in the
Not
stretch
just
that we're
further
talking
Not
about,
in the,
no.
okay, not at all?
No, because on the school side, there's a school side basically abutting the cemetery.
Right.
There are two houses on the other side, but there are no houses on the side between the high school and the cemetery, no. So there's only houses on one side, there are two.
Well, do people park on both sides?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying, as somebody who's actually living there, you just want no parking on your side, and you don't really care if they park on the high school side?
That's fine. We can live with that. We just don't want them to make a parking lot out of the old tennis courts, like what they were proposing to do.
All right, that's a different.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
That's a separate issue.
yeah,
Correct.
But, well, you should probably go out and look at these.
Yeah,
these-
I knew this was coming, but this is the
Yeah.
first time, now that I know it's marked, we can look.
Yeah,
But even-
no, but I think, I mean, if you, sort of, as somebody there and the one who's feeling the brunt of this, if really it's one side that becomes the problem, and that you don't really have an issue with the other side, I don't know. I mean, do we say this is a bad practice anyway? Because it does,
It's an error road, and I can see if the signs are out, close to the edge of the pavement, it could prevent people from, if you've got buses there waiting to turn and stuff, it could be a bottleneck.
If the root cause of the
Maybe
problem
pushing the
is,
signs back a little bit might, just to give a little bit of leeway. But, I mean, as you move into winter and you start getting piles of snow there and such, people are still gonna park there and really obstruct, obstruct
if
traffic.
the root cause of the problem is people are not parking in the high school lot, rather they're parking on Green Road, then this solves the problem by forcing them to park in the high school lot.
Right.
yeah.
But we lose our scenic road.
Only at the high school.
Yeah.
When will the stakes be up?
Are you talking to me? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So-
Well, we should allow for some time on feedback here or something.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we absolutely should, yes.
Yeah, so maybe,
It's not gonna be a perfect solution.
I am hoping that the
Yeah.
stakes are up tomorrow. I don't know that they will be up tomorrow.
The orange dots are there
But
now. And then-
Whenever the orange dots are there now, whenever they're up.
okay, stakes, I misunderstood, I thought you were talking signs.
Oh, no.
Yeah, okay,
No, the signs will go on or very close to where the dots are.
yeah,
And I said to the superintendent, once the stakes are up, we should give 2 weeks for the neighborhood to weigh in and take the input and then come up with a final plan.
yeah, okay,
And that'll give us a chance to go over and
sure.
look at it and think about it.
Mhm. No, I mean, if there are things that if there are unintended consequences for what we propose to do, then we should make adjustments.
May I respectfully request you have a longer period because of the holidays? A longer review period, and also to get some notice out to people that, because it might, it's not just the people who live there, it might be, a lot of the families that deal with these high school events.
Well, whether it's the holidays or not, people will be driving up and down the road for 2 weeks, so
Sure.
I personally think 2 weeks is sufficient. And whatever we end up doing, whether it's all of them or part of them, as part of the communication, once we have a final plan, the superintendent will put the notice up on the school website. I think we should put it up on the town website to forewarn people
Yeah.
as they're heading down there that these signs will be there, however
Yeah.
many there are.
All right, yeah, no, I suspect.
Well, let's get the stakes up and let's
Yeah.
get some feedback. Let's do that.
Yeah, all right.
Once you see them,
Feedback, would we talk to you, Don, or?
Please feel free to call me or email me or stop in, and I can provide your feedback to the selectmen.
Okay. Thank you.
You got it.
All right. Anything else, Tom?
No, not unless the board has any questions for me. I'm sorry I don't have any cards with me, but
It's okay. I can find handle by the
The next item on our agenda is Board of Selectmen business, and we have the approval of various common vittler licenses, and let's see here. These include Bolton Springs Farm, Classic Pizza 3, Colonial Candies, Country Cupboard, Davis Farms, DBA Bolton Orchards, Fotini's Restaurant and Bar, International Golf Course, Neshoba Valley Winery, Great Brook Farms, DBA Slater's, and Twin Springs Golf Course. And so for each of these, we annually have to serve food, they need a common vittler license, and that's what is being proposed, I guess.
You're going to do all licenses or just take one?
Yeah, and then above that, you've got the one,
You've got.
Oh, I skipped one. Well, okay, why don't we
the
start with
antique
these?
and the
Why don't we-
class two.
Okay.
Yeah.
The, we'll only do the vittler's licenses, since we've got them.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the common fiddler's licenses as just listed.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, we have some other less common licenses, an antique license for the sale of antique articles, and the single current licensee is Bambi Philbin, DBA Odd and Old Antiques at 725 Main Street. We also have currently a Class 2 used car dealer's license in town, and that's for Beetlebug and TNT Towing at 492 South Bolton Road.
I'll move that we approve those licenses.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then we have a series of liquor licenses that we voted to approve last
Right, so
week.
you're just signing the actual licenses tonight.
Okay, so we don't need anything.
Right,
We
you
don't need. we don't need-
voted to renew them.
Okay.
Okay. Keep the pen on. You know, while we're signing, I wanted to note that I had gotten, some folks are asking questions, what happened to the pipeline? And unfortunately, the pipeline issue is alive in Bolton, that while there was a major change to the pipeline route in the northern part of Massachusetts, which is sending it through New Hampshire under the proposal by Tennessee Gas Pipeline, they are still contemplating the Worcester North lateral going through Bolton seemingly exactly as originally laid out. And what the information, or I guess a letter that Kinder Morgan sent to landowners indicated that they're going to have meetings between January and March, their so-called open houses, and from the FERC website, it would seem that after that timeframe, FERC would hold their scoping meetings. So there'll be the opportunity to, for folks to be heard there. But, and there's a very active group that's sort of following this. And I don't know, if you're subscribed to the FERC thing, Don, there's a lot of, anyone can subscribe to the, get emails from the FERC on this application, and if you do, there's a lot of activity. There are a lot of comments that come through every day, so.
I'm having an extraordinarily hard time keeping up with it.
Well, and some groups sort of have these, you know, I can sort of see their strategy, but it's a bad idea if you're a user where they get people to sign postcards, and so they get 50 postcards going to FERC, and FERC dutifully scans every one and puts every postcard on as a separate comment, and you don't know that, because you say, okay, here's a comment, you have to click through a couple times to see, oh, it's just a postcard. So,
And some of them are handwritten and barely legible.
What is a FERC scope meeting?
Because Kinder Morgan Tennessee Gas Pipeline is using this pre-application procedure that FERC has, the idea that FERC has is flag issues for us early. And so these scoping meetings are an opportunity for people to say to FERC things they want them to, they want the applicant to focus on, or they want FERC to focus on. For example, I think it would be an opportunity for us to say, if you were inclined to approve something going to Worcester, you ought to consider different routes. And if this applicant has shown they like to use electric utility easements for their project, well, maybe there are electric utility easements that would be an alternative to going through the farms of Bolton. So I think that's and then other folks would have comments, I think, on environmental issues, but it's in order to get the flag for the FERC staff and for the applicant, issues that people think are important early in the process.
So there would be a FERC representative at that meeting as well?
Absolutely, and in fact, the FERC representatives may even show up at the open houses that the company is going to hold. The last time, they canceled it, but they had an open house for our pipeline scheduled in Northborough, which I think the pipeline goes to about 20 feet in Northborough, but no, I mean, it's just, just a handful of property owners.
It's not like,
But maybe it's centrally located. But they haven't rescheduled that yet, but it seems like it's going to be in the early part of the next year. So.
thank you.
I guess,
Larry on
it's
this.
somewhat representative of how some hot button issues work. I mean, the people who are opposed to it are extremely opposed and have quite a bit of energy about it. But like most issues, it's not 100%, it's not a universal point of view. There are people out there that think it's a positive thing. And with all the comments that I've read from FERC, I have not seen one person submit a comment saying, hey, I think this is a great idea, and I don't know why you wouldn't support it. So it's just interesting that the people who are the most upset by it are the ones that you hear from.
Mm-hmm. Right, though you also see that FERC, they just approved a pipeline in New York State, this Constitution pipeline, and they noted in press, and they had 5,000 comments on it.
Mm-hmm.
But and there were some minor changes that were made as a result of that, but I think at the end of the day, they approved it, so. Yeah, I'm not sure the postcards are doing much good.
New York just banned fracking for the governor.
Yeah.
Let's move the
Right.
Pennsylvania gas
Right.
through.
Right, and the sources from Pennsylvania, right?
Yes, I know, but New York has fracking too.
All right. Any other issues? All right.
Good.
Okay, well, I move that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.